Welcome back to another edition of Only on the Current. The Ocean State Current is Rhode Island's premier news and views organization when it comes to important issues to you and your family that aren't normally covered in any detail by anyone else in Rhode Island's legacy media. You can find all our Ocean State Current, or I should say Only on the Current episodes in the drop-down box of the quick links drop down at oceanstatecurrent.com and look for Only on the Current episodes. Today, we're going to play back a detailed interview we had with some local and national leaders in the educational freedom, parental rights, school choice movement. Ed Bastia, who is the director and leader of Rhode Island Families for School Choice. They are having a fair coming up on January 22nd, 2023 that you'll hear about. And we're also, the interview is with Hera Varma, who is with American Federation for Children. She's coming to Rhode Island to speak at that fair on January 22nd. But even if you're watching this event after the fair is over, the information you're going to hear in this interview, there's a message to parents, to students, and most importantly, to lawmakers. Given everything that happened during COVID, with the lockdowns, the masks, given the very divisive and controversial curriculum that many parents are not happy with, given the crumbling physical state of many schools, physically, the buildings, the classrooms, given the increasing danger, the violence that we see in Providence schools and elsewhere, lack of safety, there are a lot of reasons. And of course, most importantly, all of that leading to falling and failing achievement among students in our state, in our Ocean State. There are the demand for increased educational opportunities, whether that's homeschooling, private schools, parochial schools, Catholic or Jewish or any other faith, or any other secular private school. The demand is soaring, and it's time for Ocean State lawmakers to put the needs of students and children first above the needs of the adults who are represented in the school district and by the teachers' unions. There are strong forces against educational reforms in this state. Many lawmakers are hopelessly compromised when it comes to educational reform because of the power of the teacher unions and the power of some of the left-leaning groups like the Rhode Island Association of School Committees and whatnot. Don't forget, it was the Rhode Island Association of School Committees that basically endorsed the concept that parents who speak out at school committee meetings could be referred to or investigated as domestic terrorists. This is what we're up against. We've documented on the Ocean State Current, on my In the Dugout podcast, dozens of parents who have spoken out at school committees for any number of reasons. I know that all of those parents, many of them have left public schools and are homeschooling. Many of them are now finding ways to fund their students going to private schools. One parent we've had on the show is even starting a whole new Catholic school in this state just to provide options for her children and other children's. Parents are not happy with taxpayer-funded government schools. Lawmakers need to respond to this increased demand. Lawmakers need to start serving the interests of their constituents, not the interests of the special interests. So I invite you to stay tuned and watch this interview we did with Ed Bastia and with Hera Varma. And it'll be a real educational experience for you about the need for educational freedom in Rhode Island. As you've heard us discuss many times on this In the Dugout video podcast, parents are increasingly looking for options when it comes to the education of their children. But in our state, there's not a lot of educational freedom, not a lot of choice available to parents. There are some, you're going to hear about it, but after the school lockdowns, the mask mandates, the very controversial and divisive curriculum we've talked about for a few years on this show, the increasing violence in Providence schools. There's a lot of reasons parents probably want to move their kids out of some of the public school districts that they're pretty much forced to attend or assigned because of the zip code. So there is a movement in Rhode Island. It's called Rhode Island Families for School Choice. They've got a fair coming up. They've got a fantastic guest speaker coming in. So let's meet a couple of principals with that. And we want to welcome to In the Dugout, Ed Bastia and Hera Varma. Ed, welcome to In the Dugout.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate having this opportunity to meet with you and to share with you a little bit about what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to achieve through this upcoming school fair. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. And Hera Varma, you are joining us from Tampa, Florida. You're with American Federation for Children. Welcome to In the Dugout.
Yes, thank you. I'm super excited to come to Rhode Island and visit your state and also tackle school choice. That's what we do every day. So I'm excited.
All right, I'm gonna start with Ed on a little bit more detail. First of all, Ed, you're with a group that's called Rhode Island Families for School Choice. Your website, which I'm showing right now, is well, if I can show it, there it is called Ed Choice RI. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
Absolutely. So we grouped together a bunch of people who were like-minded and feeling that in this state, we needed to promote more opportunities for parents to select the school of their choice for their children. We firmly believe that Rhode Island parents are the primary educators of their kids. They learn the most from them, and they learn their morals, they learn their basic fibers for growing up from their families. And families, unfortunately, are not permitted or not empowered in the state of Rhode Island to have more than one educational opportunity. For example, let's say we might know of a particular family living in a city like Central Falls. Central Falls, unfortunately, is not necessarily a very affluent neighborhood. So predominantly the people who live there they're economically struggling. And we also know that the state had to take over the school system in Central Falls because it was just a very bad situation. And scores were very bad. Students were not attending. Graduation rates were deplorable. As a result of all of that, the state took over the school system in Central Falls. Well, let's say you know that family, and perhaps it's a single parent, and that parent is living paycheck to paycheck in a rented tenement in Central Falls. Let me ask you, what options does that family have for their child's education?
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons they need that. We're going to get into some details. I want to just have you set up your event, and then I want to bring Hera in and talk about. She's going to be your featured speaker at this event. But you have an event coming up that we want to let everyone know about. It's called your Rhode Island Families for School Choice Fair, and it's a couple of Sundays from now. You used to have an event at the State House annually. It's as part of National School Choice Week, but go ahead, tell us about this event at the Crowne Plaza.
Absolutely. So we've been very, very fortunate to partner with some wonderful benefactors. National School Choice Week and American Federation for Children are two of the wonderful benefactors that we have. And I might just segue into letting you know that American Federation for Children is where Hera works, and they are generously offering the opportunity for her to fly into Rhode Island to spend the weekend with us and to try to promote school choice here in the state of Rhode Island. And we're very grateful for that. And National School Choice Week celebrates national school choice throughout the entire country. There's a celebration in every state. And in Rhode Island, we decided that we would work closely with them, and they helped fund this opportunity for us. We have assembled we have the Plaza Ballroom, and we have filled the ballroom. I think we have space for 28 schools. We have a variety of different types of schools that are going to be present that day with representatives from those schools, and they are all going to be there to show and demonstrate and talk about the benefits of their programs. And the makeup of those schools is a variety of different schools. We have we have several charters, we have some private schools, we have some religious based, we have virtual, we have online, we have some technical schools, one of which is a public technical school. So we're delighted to see the variety of different types of educational opportunities that are coming
Right.
together for this particular fair and this particular event.
All right, let's bring in, let me bring in Hera. We'll get back to your event in a second, but I want to bring Hera in. Now, you saw her on the flyer. She's your featured speaker. Hera, you're with the American Federation for Children. First of all, tell us a little bit about the organization and a little bit about your work with them.
So the American Federation for Children, we empower parents to access a quality education in each state. But we are the biggest nonprofit school choice organization in the country because we tackle 3 different entities in this space. So we have a C3, which is empowering parents, finding scholarships with them, working alongside them, or in what I'm doing right now, speaking on behalf of school choice and telling my story, that all falls under C3. Then we have our C4, which is bills, lobbying for bills if we're talking about a direct bill or a direct candidate that is bringing a bill up on the floor, or anything that has to do with lobbying, we deal with that. And then we also get people elected, and that's in our PAC. So that is something that we do every single day. What I do every single day is in all 3. I'm on the communications team at AFC, and I deal with all the comms needs in each state. We have about 13 states that we work primarily in right now, and trying to get legislation passed with school choice, whether that's expanding school choice, or that's actually bringing a new bill to the floor. Arizona was our big win last year with their national universal ESA. So we're very proud of that and looking forward to seeing how that's going to go for this next few years. But yes, that's what we do at AFC.
All right, now, I don't want to get into your full history yet, but I do want to give some background, which I think is very interesting. Hera, your parents apparently immigrated to America from Liberia and the Caribbean, looking for, just like all immigrants here, looking for a better opportunity, as often only America can provide. And you yourself, I assume your family wasn't zillionaires, and you are a recipient of a tax credit scholarship program, which is a form of school choice. And so tell us just very quickly about how that came to pass.
So quickly, my parents immigrated over here from Liberia and Jamaica. My mom's from Jamaica, and my father wanted to go back to Liberia. They were in the Civil War at the time, so we ended up going to their bordering country, which is Ghana. Went to school there, and any school you went to, you had to pay for. There wasn't public schools, there were scholarships, you had to pay for that school. So many students didn't end up not going to school if they were impoverished. My grandfather knew that we needed to get back over to the States to access a quality education, and realizing that there was no hope for, there wasn't access to success in the country. So my coming over here, I then realized the same thing was happening over here. We call it the American dream, and we say people have access to the American dream, but only those that can afford to access the American dream will actually.
Yeah, just being an American student doesn't guarantee you a great education.
Doesn't guarantee
anymore,
it.
does it? No.
And that was the first time that I realized that was when I was in college, and I met a lot of kids that were either in inner cities or that were in rural areas that they would only have their public school that they were zoned for. And that's when I knew that I had to take up the fight. I was one of the lucky ones that was able to access a quality education, and seeing that the same injustices are happening here as they are overseas really shocked me. And so that's why I decided to do what I do every day.
And we're glad you do.
And then I'm going to go back to Ed on the event in a second, but just one more piece that sticks out to me. Now, Florida under Governor Jeb Bush became, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, became also, like Arizona, one of the most reform-oriented states when it comes to providing parents with choices and educational freedom. So you were a recipient of a Florida tax credit scholarship. Was that under Governor Jeb Bush at the time?
So Governor Jeb Bush wasn't the governor at the time when I accessed the Step for Students Scholarship, which is a tax credit scholarship. But we knew about Jeb Bush. We knew the things that he did. He paved the way for us to go to school. And then the fact that he also continues through his organization, Excel and Ed, continues to fight for school choice is very empowering. So yeah. I feel like
All
I've been under him now.
All right, Ed, let's go back to your event. Let's describe what people will see. I assume you would like parents and students to come, right?
Well, as I was mentioning, we fill the hall with a variety of schools. There will be entertainment, there will be prizes, there will be a balloon making kit for children. There will be face painting, there'll be a photo booth. We're trying to get some personalities to walk around and meet up with the kids and take pictures. There will be a very brief speaking engagement twice during the program. We're only going to allow a few minutes for speaking. Hera's going to address the crowd probably around 1 o'clock and then again around 2 o'clock. And at that point in time, we'll probably draw some of the door prizes. In addition to that, we have the foyer set up with some of our school-friendly vendors, people who support a variety of education in the state of Rhode Island and who want to be there to show their support for it. So that's how the whole event will play out. And it's free parking, obviously. It's a Sunday afternoon in the middle of January. Chances are the weather's not going to be stellar, so it's a good place to be on a Sunday afternoon in Rhode Island.
That's
So we
great.
look forward to people coming out and visiting us and enjoying the day.
Well, speaking of visiting, Hera, will this be your first trip to the great ocean state?
Yes, this is my first trip.
You haven't lived yet, Hera.
My second trip in New England area.
Lived yet.
I know. It's my second trip in New England area. I went to Vermont last year. I'm going back this year. But yes, it's my first trip. I'm excited.
Now Ed, I just learned today, Ed Bastia, who's on it right here, is of Italian heritage. And we have, I'm half Paisan. I traveled the world playing ball, or the country playing ball, and I'll tell you, Providence, Italian. So if you would all like Italian food, you make sure Ed takes you out to one of those great Italian restaurants in our state. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Ed, I'm sure you know a few good ones. All right. So Hera, as Ed just mentioned, you'll be addressing the crowd. What will be your main look? There's only so much parents can do. I want to take a holistic view here. We can be pie in the sky and talk about why we need school choice and parents who are coming, but we have a challenge in this state. We have a teacher union dominated legislature who will fight this every step of the way, have fought it every step of the way. So what is the message that can shed some hope, both from a theory, more from a philosophical point of view and from a practical? So I want you to talk as much to any lawmakers who might be listening right now as it would be just to the public. Because I think the public understands the need for school choice, but to convince lawmakers to go against their union masters, and excuse me for being harsh, but I'm very down on teacher unions in this state right now. So I am harsh. But your message to any lawmakers who might be listening right now, that maybe you won't talk about that Sunday, but weave the two of those together.
Yeah. So any lawmakers, same thing that happened in Florida. We just didn't wake up one morning and we had school choice. So that's the thing that I've always said, that it took time, and it took the power of legislate, like the legislative, and also the power of the parents and the school boards and everybody coming together. But what I would say to legislators is not to stand in the way of a child's success. I think that's what but I know that's what they're continually doing every single day, is standing in the way of their success. You don't know what a child can do. I was not a straight A student. I wasn't even a straight B student. And it took a lot of help. It took my mom finding the best school for me and for my siblings, for us to access that education, and for me to then go on to high school and become that straight B and A student and go on to college and do well. And in not giving the parents the option, the families the option at a quality education, you're taking away their fundamental right. We were given these rights to have a quality education, and you guys have stripped that away. And so what I'm saying now is, get from under the teachers union and vote, having these families in mind, because they say all the time is that we're doing this for our constituents. We're thinking about families, but you're not thinking about families when you're voting against school choice.
Yeah, teachers unions are not in it for the kids; they're in it for the teachers, for the adults, and school choice is about the kids. Yeah,
and we've seen that every single time when they try to even sue the Separate Students program, the tax credit scholarship program. 7 years ago here in Florida, they tried to strip that program away, and I was using the program at the time. And so everyone's looking around, and you had kids asking teachers like, because it was national news at the point. And you had students asking teachers like, am I not going to be able to come to the school anymore? So that's what you're doing. That's the opportunity you're taking away from these students. And it's completely not right. So we need to find a way. We need to get from under the teachers union, find a way to push them out of the state.
Okay. Ed, let's talk about the state of school choice in the state of Rhode Island. As I understand it, we have some charter schools, a lot of lawmakers back, as incentivized by their union funders, are trying to put moratoriums on charter schools. And we do have something called corporate tax credit scholarship programs, where corporations can donate money to a third-party funding organization, who in turn hands out scholarships to needy students to private schools. But that program is heavily capped. There's a big demand for it, but we put caps. They limit that form of school choice. We also provide some funding for transportation and books and whatnot for private school students, even parochial school students. But we've never been able to get any form of educational scholarship account or any kind of public dollars following the student to private schools. Your thoughts on the state of school choice in Rhode Island, Ed?
Well, first of all, thank you. I think that it's important that people do a little bit of research. And I'm just going to hold up a document here that I pulled off of American Federation for Children this morning. And what it is that there's a state-by-state analysis of the various types of school choice programs that exist in any particular state. Now, I'm not going to read this to people, but you can certainly look for it yourself. Basically, we have one of the smallest programs in the country. Our school choice program is extraordinarily restricted and held down by our state legislature. And I think that, to Hera's point and to your point, it's an injustice to families. It's an injustice to students. We need to see these programs widened and open the doors and the windows and allow people to take advantage of them. You talked for a few minutes about the tax credit program. I've been around a while and I understand the tax credit program. I was working at the time in administration for Catholic education when this particular program was signed into law back in 2006. By then Governor Carcieri, it was capped at $1 million in 2006. And it was raised only once in 2013 to $1.5 million. Now, when you look at the
almost 10 years ago, so there's been no movement for almost 10 years.
It's almost 10 years, no movement. And the cost of education is skyrocketing each and every year. On their website, the Rhode Island Department of Education says that they spend $2.4 billion with a B dollars each year on education. But yet, what do they allow for this particular program? Only 1.5 million. So it's very, very small. It's a drop in the bucket. And to your point that you've made, both of you made this point eloquently, when a student is able to take advantage of a corporate tax credit scholarship, there's no cost to the state. They're not charging, they're not using, they're not consuming state dollars. They're going to a school of their choice based on the amount of money that has been awarded to them in the form of tuition assistance through a tax credit.
Well, that's a great point you make. There's no cost to the state on that. And when we did our financial analysis for the even with our educational scholarship, there was no new money needed. You could use existing state funding to provide scholarships to students to go to a private school. And we even show that the school districts would come out, the remaining public school districts would come out ahead financially. So there's no new money needed for any of these educational freedom options we would advocate for. Hera, I want to broaden Ed's point there. And I want you to make it personal to you and to other families you've met across the country. How did being able to escape what your parents weren't happy with was a public school system and go to a private school, how did it change your life?
So what I think is important in what Ed is saying and what you've been saying is that what school choice does, and I want to start with that first. What school choice does, it doesn't say I have to go to a public school, a charter school, a magnet
Right.
school, a home school, or private school. That's the thing. It tells you that you can take the dollars and it follows you to whatever school you go to. And for me, I have 12 siblings. So 9 out of my 12 siblings went to
Wow.
private school and 3 went to public school. And they still use a bit of school choice because we were able to move at the time and they were able to choose what public school they went to, which were the better public schools in the area. And they had different programs. My sister, she loved arts. So she wanted to go to Blake High School because they had a really great arts program. And so I think that's what it does for each student. Every sibling is not the same and neither were we. But what it did for my family specifically is that it took the 9 of us that did go to private school. We all went to 3 different private schools that were Catholic schools. And my parents were able to then kind of pave out a path for us and kind of direct us into what they wanted us to learn. They wanted us to have a value-based education. So we went to Catholic school. So in every period we were able to pray and they were able to not control our education, but kind of control what's being taught to us in the classroom by choosing what school was for us. But what this did in the long term was it opened our eyes to different opportunities that we wouldn't have thought of in our general public school. In our middle school, we were able to meet judges and lawyers, and I met my first food scientist I've ever met. I had no idea what that was. And I then went to school to pursue food science and technology and a civic engineering degree, then started working in communications and policy. So I see as where that went. But what that did is it still opened up a lane for me and said, okay, this is what I think I want to do. I've gotten to explore this field through someone else's lenses. And now I can pave my own path and choose what I want to do in my life. And I think what's happening in the public school, they're restricted on everything that they're teaching their kids or new things or new curriculums that they're
Or
introducing.
even if they're teaching their kids anymore.
Exactly. And we're seeing this across in each state and how the public school has been failing each and every student. And what we're saying is you giving them this opportunity, you take the restrictions off, you then open up each child to see what they can become. And what I've always said is something that I've gotten from Ben Carson is his whole story about the gifted hands. And what I say is that if you're not giving these students the opportunity, you're losing a lot of gifted minds. And how many gifted minds will we have lost in my
So you're probably one of them, right? I mean, can you say with some certainty that had you not had the opportunity for that private school choice tax credit scholarship program, that those paths you talked about so beautifully a few minutes ago would not have been available to you, and that gifted mind of yours would have been left to waste? Are you pretty comfortable saying?
I am 100% sure I would not be sitting in front of you guys today. I would not have went to the college that I went to, the high school I went to. I wouldn't have had the opportunities to travel the country and the world. I've been traveling. And I give the greatest example. I sometimes don't talk about myself enough, and everybody always says that, but my greatest, I think my family's greatest success story, just because we love my brother's story, is that he was a C student like myself, and he struggled. He had to repeat the 2nd grade. And it was just English over here is different than English in Ghana. So it was tricky for us with grammar, and he struggled alongside myself. And now he's a chemical engineer at GE, General Electric, in South Carolina. And so me and him, we always talk about that because we struggled the most out of any of our siblings. Everybody else just seemed to be a genius. They rolled out of bed and just got straight A's. And for us, it was a struggle. But because we were able to access that education, we were able to persevere through our academic life and then go on to do amazing things. And so I can tell you with 100% certainty that I would not be where I am today without school choice.
What a great story. Ed, legislatively, again, we all know the reasons why, whether it's the failing achievement in our schools, whether it's the pandemic lockdowns and maskings, whether it's the anti-American history, the critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, the comprehensive sex inappropriate stuff, the transgender, whatever it is, there's a lot of parents who don't agree, right? Whether you think that stuff's good or bad, the fact is there are a lot of parents that don't believe in any of that stuff, but yet it's being forced upon their kids. So that's the reason many of them want to leave. But and I'm sure Harold will reinforce this, but you and I even found, Ed, in this state, that school choice is not a partisan issue. There are Democrats who believe in it. It's not just a Republican thing. So I want to ask you this, Ed Bastia. Bastia, excuse me, I got to get it right. The accent on the second to last vowel. I'm Italian. I didn't even know that. Matt Patel. Ed, do you have any legislative champions that you feel you can turn to in the Rhode Island General Assembly? And is there any, and I think Governor McKee, and you can even bring a Governor McKee. Governor McKee helped start, mayoral academies in Cumberland, but he appears to be fully now in the pocket of the teachers unions. So who can you turn to at the State House that might advance your cause?
There are some local representatives and senators who have been very, very supportive through the years. And a couple of names that come to representatives that come to mind are Mike Chippendale, David Place, Raymond Hull, and in the Senate we have Tom Paolino, Senator Jessica De La Cruz. These are people who are like-minded and who are interested in supporting. Unfortunately, they're not in the majority, and the the situation in the state of Rhode Island is so integrated with the power of the Public Teachers Union. I'm not going to give you the name of the individual, but a couple of years ago, I sat before the House Finance Committee to try to promote an increase to the corporate tax credit program. And we sat before House Finance, and there was a representative on the House Finance Committee who was listening to our petition and who had to pass judgment and to vote on whether or not this should actually take place. And that person professionally worked for a public teachers institution. So, where is the impartiality that needs to happen for a law to pass in the state of Rhode Island? It's just very unfortunate that this is the way it is. So what I want to see parents wake up. Communication is a very powerful tool. You have to have awareness and you have to have communication, two very important words. And if you're aware of the fact of what's going on and you want to see change, then you need to communicate it. You need to pick up the phone, you need to call your legislators, you need to write to your elected officials and tell them the time is now. To your point, Mike, COVID did a very big service to us.
Yeah, exposed a lot of this, didn't it?
It erased all of the cloud. And
Yep.
people saw exactly what was going on in education in the state of Rhode Island. Throughout the country, yes, but here locally in the state of Rhode Island, people could see what was going on, and parents are infuriated over
Yes.
that. So
Yes, and so we need to organize them, and you and I will be
Absolutely.
working together on that. Let me get as we start to close down here our interview, and thank you both for your time. Hera, I don't know. I'd like to know if you're seeing this throughout the country, because we're starting to see more and more of this in Rhode Island, and maybe especially in Providence schools, the inner city schools. And of course, often those are the families who are most in need of options for the children. They're the ones who have the greatest hurdles to overcome, and they're the ones whose schools are usually maybe the oldest, maybe the least well run, and as I'm about to show you here, becoming dangerous. Here was an editorial in a digital publication in Rhode Island. Almost every week there's been a stabbing, an arrest, something going on in the schools that's violent. I mean, we can talk about school shootings all you want when they occasionally happen, but regularly now students and teachers are being assaulted and arrested in schools. So that's another reason parents might want to move their children. I mean, gosh, you send your kids to school thinking, okay, I want to have an education, but you also think they're at least going to be safe there. So how much is violence an increasing reason why parents want options, Hera?
So I think that this has been a problem for a minute in the general public schools. because even in the state of Florida, before they had offered school choice programs, there had been bullying problems and violence problems. But what I think this is a phrase that not myself, but Denisha Allen on my team used to say, well, most of us would say, is school to prison pipeline. And what I think what we're seeing right now is that it's prison to prison pipeline. These schools are feeling like the kids are in handcuffs. They are not learning what they need to learn. And so that's a new phrase that we've been using, is prison to prison pipeline. And no child can learn in an environment like that. They're supposed to be focused on learning. And these were problems that were brought up even when there was when we were talking about people that were being bullied and that they can't focus in school, and there's been bullying problems. And now it seems like we've escalated over the years to where we're now having crime in the actual schools themselves. And you're seeing that in a lot of inner city schools. You can talk about Detroit, Michigan. You can talk about Chicago, Illinois. You can talk about these inner city schools in New York City. You can think about all of these inner cities that have a lot of violence in their own neighborhoods are now brought into the actual school themselves. And then you're not giving them an option out of the school. So now you're looking at what I've said before is prison to prison pipeline, and these students cannot learn this way. So now and we're saying, okay, how are we going to fix the problems? How are we going to fix the problem? That's what that the teachers unions have been saying. We're going to fix the problem and give us 5 years. And these students cannot afford to give them 5 years for you to fix this problem that should have been fixed.
Well, and that's such a great point. I mean, we've had, Ed, you've seen it, we've read about it. I mean, we've had the devastating Johns Hopkins report in 2019. We've had other devastating reports. They're always talking about this 5 to 10 year plan, these vague promises
and
of
when
reform.
somebody's 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, could you have waited for those 10 years?
If I waited 2 years, I would not have been where I am today.
Right.
And that's the thing. You cannot say wait years, especially in a child's early education. If a child's not ready by 8th grade, they don't have much hope. Now, am I saying that every child that is not ready by the time they're in 8th grade won't succeed? No, but what I am saying that polling does show that if the child is not ready by the early education, not just K through 12, but K through 8, then they're going to struggle and they may not be where they need to be in order to even get to college. So I think we're doing them a disservice, and opening up to school choice programs is what will solve these problems. But we want to keep, the teaching union want to keep spewing out the lies, like we're looking for solutions and we're trying to find out solutions and throw more money when money has never solved one problem. So that's my answer to them, and that's kind of my little jab to the teachers union on that note as well.
Regarding money.
Right.
if I
Yeah,
may.
and I want to just continue to for 1 second, then you can add in yours as well. But immediacy is important.
Oh, absolutely.
These kids do not have time to wait. Their educational careers and potentially their lives, their not their lives literally, but their chances for a successful life could be over, as Hera said.
But their lives, yeah.
Yeah,
But
or maybe even their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right too. Maybe even their life. The event, Ed, is Sunday, January 22nd. It's at the Crown Plaza, Rhode Island, and they can come. There are some options for some families for next fall to immediately have their kids moved into a new school. There's not a lot of options. We need more of them in the state. But Ed, if parents come to this event, they might learn about some options, right? That might immediately benefit their kids.
Absolutely. If you're not satisfied with what your current situation is, then why not come and see what else is out there? It might be that you're looking for a neighborhood school pod where you can send your kids with 3 or 4 other students in the neighborhood to a local family's house for homeschooling. It might be that you want
that's a great point, because homeschooling doesn't have to be all on that family's parents, right? That you can get into a pod and you can kind of share the load, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. And I've talked with several of the people who are working in homeschooling. I myself don't have any personal experience in it, and I'd like to learn more about it. But one of the benefits of it is that as long as you meet the core curriculum that is set up by the Rhode Island Department of Education, you have unlimited resources. One of the teachers was telling me that for science, what they do is they take the kids for a walk in the woods and they identify botany and areas of growth, and they look at animals, and it's like, wow, it's like, are the kids in Providence learning this stuff? I really don't think so. You know, so there are tremendous benefits to looking at alternate types of education. But the point I wanted to make to follow up on the money issue that we talked about a moment ago, why is it, and this is a question, why is it that so many parents in the state of Rhode Island that are currently having their kids enrolled in taxpayer-funded education costing the state on average $18,000 to $19,000 a year, why are they looking to pull those kids out and put them into another school that would cost them out of pocket $7,000 a year? What is it that's drawing them to that? And if you want to know the answers to that, folks, come to the fair, meet Hera, and look at all of the beautiful opportunities that are available for you and your families.
All right, that's well said. Hera, I want the final word to go to you. I'd like you to just give us a little perspective. You know what we're up against in this state legislatively. You know the limited options that lawmakers have made available to families right now. Put that in perspective with what you're seeing, you know, trends across the country.
What I would say, one, to the parents is that you're not alone. I think that's a lot of parents that I've talked to. They feel like there's no hope and they're like, oh, well, we're just not like this state, or we're just not like that state. The teachers union is so strong in our state. And what I would tell them is that every state has had the same problems, and every state is going through the same problems. So what I would tell them is to vote with your feet. Like you get to the polls. You need to vote on in your local elections. Those are very important. And get involved in your school board meetings. Get involved in those, and that's when you can tell them exactly how you feel about whatever problems, and bring those problems, bring the polling, bring the statistics. But that's what I would say, is that you're not alone. We're all in this fight together. We are trying to bring school choice and expand school choice in every state.
Are you seeing more and more states opening their doors to educational freedom options?
Yes, we've seen more and more states we call 2021 with the year of school choice. And then we call 2022 the school choice wave, because we've had, I don't want to get the number wrong, but we've had so many states in 2021 that either expanded or introduced new school choice and voted and actually passed those laws into place in the year of 2021. And it just boomed in 2022. And this was after COVID, which showed what was happening in the classrooms. So I say we have the momentum, and that's what I will say. We have the momentum on our side, and just keep at it. If you keep at it, you'll get something passed, and we'll be right alongside you guys throughout the whole process, and we'll be like Arizona when they finally pass their universal ESA. So we will get this. We will get this done, and it's going to be great.
Well, with your great speech coming up on the 22nd, Ed, with your great event that you're running, and again, here's the flyer, folks. Hopefully that school choice wave that Hera mentioned will hit the Ocean State. I mean, it's only appropriate that a wave should hit the Ocean State, right? So,
Yes,
so I know, Ed, you always have your foot on the pedal pushing this. We're going to join with you in some initiatives this year as well at our Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. And Hera, maybe you'll love Rhode Island so much you'll come back and visit us another time. But I want to thank you both for appearing on In the Dugout. Ed Bastia and Hera Varma, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Hera. I look forward to working with you next week. We have another one of these interviews.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
All right. Good day, all, and I'm gonna thank our viewing audience for tuning in today. Look, you know, educational freedom, parental rights, parental choice is an increasing cry you're hearing from parents. As Hera said, as Ed explained, the need is enormous, the demand is growing. Yet Rhode Island lawmakers back, you know, with the basically the coercion of the teachers unions are blocking those reforms from happening in this state, and we must work to overcome that. So again, thank you for tuning into this episode of In the Dugout. We'll see you next time. Mike Stenos out.